Hey guys, it's Bina, and today I want to present to you my top 10 tips for new players for launch of Last Epoch on February 21st. Let's get straight into it. My first tip would be getting and setting up a loot filter. If you are using a build guide, loot filters are provided with all of our guides on Maxroll. If you are not using a build guide, then setting up a simple loot filter will greatly help you go through the story without having too much items to look at. Item drops can get pretty overwhelming, especially as a new player. If you are not filtering anything, you will get overwhelmed by the sheer amount of items that drop. Getting a very simple loot filter going is extremely easy and does not require much time. The loot filter window can be accessed with Shift F. From there, the menu is pretty intuitive. If you need extra help, follow my simple loot filter for beginners guide. I'll have it down in the description below. My second tip would be craft early and craft often. You should start crafting as early as chapter 1 in Last Epoch. Crafting is very deterministic in this game, unlike other ARPGs. It is a very simple and effective way to increase your build's potential all throughout the story and even the endgame. Learning the ins and outs of crafting will prove super valuable all throughout your gameplay. Again, I'll have a link to a more in-depth crafting guide down below. Number 3. The in-game guide. By pressing the hotkey G on your keyboard, you can access the in-game guide. This guide provides any extra information that you would like to know about anything in the game. If you are wondering what elements are or how to scale elements, then just type elements in the search window and it will link you to the correct page. Same goes for pretty much everything else in the game. There are a few exceptions, and not everything is in the in-game guide, but I would say 99% of the required information that you need to be able to play effectively is included in the in-game guide. Don't be afraid to use it when in doubt. Next, we have respecing. In Last Epoch, the process of respecing is straightforward. Skills can be reset with a simple click in the upper right corner of your skill tree. It's worth noting that early game respecing can be a bit challenging, requiring you to re-level your newly chosen skill. As your character progresses, the minimum level of skill also increases, but this limitation only extends up to 10 levels. Consequently, in the later stages of the endgame, respecing becomes less punishing, offering ample room for experimentation with various skill trees. Respecing passives is equally hassle-free. You can conveniently visit a Chronomancer NPC like the one found in the End of Time, marked with a head and brain icon. Here, you can reallocate points for a reasonable gold cost. However, it's crucial to note that mastery choices are permanent. Once you've chosen a path, such as being a shaman, you can't switch to another like druid. Nevertheless, you can distribute points into the first half of each mastery for flexibility. Next, let's talk about defenses. Staying alive in Last Epoch is a big deal. There are two main things to focus on. First, make sure you don't take too much damage by mitigating damage as much as possible. Second, find ways to keep yourself healthy, like using life leech or health regen. Also, pay attention to your resistances. In this game, enemies penetrate 1% of your resistances for every area level that you're in, up to 75%. So, try to keep your resistances close to the area level you're playing in, up to that 75% mark, to get the most out of them. Resistances are one of the most effective ways of mitigating damage, and it's also one of the only way to mitigate damage over time. Other forms of defenses include block, armor, dodge, ward, endurance, and many more. Make sure you are not falling behind and ignoring scaling your defenses. Now, for the next tip, we'll talk about damage. When you hover your mouse over a skill, it shows all of its scaling tags. This gives you important information on how to boost your damage properly. Pressing Alt reveals more details about the exact scaling. To keep it simple, damage includes flat damage, which is just a number, percentage increase damage, which adds up in a big bucket, and more multipliers. The game is clear about what's multiplicative. It's shown in parentheses as multiplicative with other modifiers. So remember, flat times the percentage increase times your more multiplier 1 times the more multiplier 2, and so on. It's like building up layers of damage. My next tip is don't farm in regular Monolith. You want to get to the empowered Monolith as soon as possible. Farming in the regular Mono is a waste of time, as the area level is lower than 100 and blessings are numerically lower than in Empowered. Your chance of getting LP uniques is directly tied to the area level, which is going to be lower in non-empowered. On top of this, non-empowered monos cap at 50 corruption. You want to rush empowered ASAP. Do not get intimidated by the area level compared to your character's level. You should be more or less level 80 when you unlock empowered monos. Number 8. Stick to the right side of the monolith. This one is directly tied to number 7. The timelines on the right side offer blessings that boost your character's power, while the left side provides drop rate blessings. To make things easier on your journey to unlocking empowered, stay on the right side until you reach the 3 level 90 timelines. By doing this, your character gets stronger as you move through each timeline, making the overall experience smoother. It's like leveling up your hero on the right path. Number 9. Runes of Shattering and Runes of Removal. Your build might benefit from certain rare affixes. Affixes such as hybrid health or class-specific affixes, such as plus level of certain skills, are not common drops. Highlighting them in your loot filter and using Rune of Shattering or Removal is a great way to stack upon them for crafting purposes. Once you've acquired enough, feel free to remove them from your loot filter. My last and final tip: use or don't use a build guide. Well, this one can go both ways. Either use a build guide or do not use a build guide. Let me explain. As a new player wanting to get a smooth experience, leveling and all throughout the endgame up to high corruption, following a build guide can prove quite helpful. On the other hand, not following a build guide and making your own build as you progress can be extremely rewarding and a totally different experience as a player. If you're already an ARPG veteran that understands the core mechanics and damage scaling of games like Path of Exile, for example, making your own build would be my suggestion. This pretty much sums it up. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.